What is this bizarro world where I'm one of the only people happy with a new controversial series that's come out? So the Knuckles show has finally hit Paramount Plus after a lengthy 2-year wait since its original announcement, and people are not happy.
Kevin James is headlining here.
The Mall Cop?
My timeline for the past day and a half has been plagued by unhappy Sonic fans saying this show is horrible and an insult to the franchise. Whereas I'm sat there like, did you watch the Sonic movies? What did you expect? This is on the same level, basically. Of course, that title is a joke. If you don't like the Knuckles series, then that's valid. I seriously get why people are not enjoying it. If you went in expecting an action comedy solely focused on Knuckles that would delve more into his character, then you're fair for not being content with a plot that's essentially the cop from the Sonic movies wanting to compete in a bowling tournament to reconnect with his estranged father. While Knuckles is there too, I guess. I suppose I've just long accepted at this point that the Sonic franchise will never be what I want from it, and so I've been trying to view each piece of media as to whether or not it stands on its own. You know, is this entertaining as its own thing? And when it comes to the Knuckles series, I don't know, it's written better than Sonic Frontiers, I'll give it that much.
Man, this place is beautiful, huh?
No.
I'm usually of the belief that it's better to judge a piece of media for what it does, not what you wish it did. And so personally, I went into the Knuckles series expecting exactly what the advertising showed me. A simple, low-stakes comedy that would focus on the buddy comedy that is Knuckles and Weird Whipple. Honestly, if there's anything I could realistically compare the Knuckles series to, it would be The Ted Show. An odd comparison, but they're honestly pretty similar. Knuckles soon turns into a family sitcom of the echidna trying to help his human friend out with whatever problem he's got going on. Dude, why didn't they call it Ted and John? This is false advertising, what the heck? Again, if you didn't like it, that's fine. But I have seen too many people claim that this is unironically one of the worst shows they've ever seen in their life. To which my response would be, you need to watch more shows. Let's get this out of the way. Is the Knuckles show a good Sonic series? Not at all. Is it questionable that whoever wrote this decided to make Knuckles nothing more than a sidekick to the human character when everything it had set up implied the opposite? Yes. But, at the end of the day, is the Knuckles show good? Well, kinda, yeah. I had fun with it, watched through it twice, once on my own and once with others, in which both times I find myself having a very enjoyable experience, even if I don't personally think this works well as a Knuckles series. I mean, it was only on my second rewatch that someone pointed out to me that Weird Whipple's father was played by Dr. Gordon from the Saw franchise. That was freaking fun, that caught me off guard. I just think if you went in here expecting to be surprised by Rouge or the Chaotix or whatever, then you were just setting yourself up for disappointment. I don't agree with this mindset that the show was misleading with its marketing. Sure, Knuckles is the focal point of the posters and all, but in the trailers and such, they make a clear point to establish this is an adventure between him and Weird, the incompetent cop of Green Hills. And so in that regard, in setting the bar so low for what I expected, I actually find myself appreciating how fun and creative the series was compared to what could have been. Because honestly, I think the Knuckles show is better than both Sonic movies. There's my hot take for you. I don't really need a shit ton of iconography shoved in my face to cheer and clap at to like a show, especially in a universe that has already established itself to be far removed from the Sonic we expect. I personally don't mind the human characters in the Sonic movies. I like Tom. I like Maddie. I often see this complaint that the Knuckles show is basically the wedding scene from Sonic 2, but drawn out over an entire 2.5 hours, when I couldn't disagree more. I think that just fundamentally misunderstands why people didn't like the wedding scene in the first place. Because really, the wedding on its own is fine. It's a cool twist to integrate the gun agents into this world and imply they've been planning on finding a way to infiltrate and spy on Sonic in the future. The wedding scene stops working when it devotes precious screen time away from Sonic and Tails being kidnapped and Robotnik and Knuckles seeking the Master Emerald, to instead show us a story in which Rachel yells at her partner for tricking her and he apologizes and says that he indeed does love her. And then they get back together because, like, I don't know. Or care, as a matter of fact. I don't give a shit about these people. I've had no time to give a shit. Whereas from the get-go, the Knuckles series establishes Wade's presence and what he wants. It's Knuckles' goal to help turn him into a warrior and to beat the bowling tournament. They're no longer unrelated plot threads. Us spending time with Wade's family doesn't feel like nonsense I don't care about, padding out the runtime, because I actually gotta spend some time with them. There's room to breathe as Knuckles talks to and protects his family. Wade's sister sucks though, I'll concede on that. She just rips the life out of the series anytime she opens her mouth. I get what they were going for. They wanted Wanda to be like a girl version of Wade, but the difference is she just doesn't take any situation seriously, and therefore I give no shits as to whether or not she lives or dies. I actually think she's the perfect example of how annoying Weird could have been if not handled properly. Because thankfully, I actually really enjoy Weird. I liked him in Sonic 1, 2, and The Knuckles Show. He was consistently a highlight. I don't care that he's not a Sonic character, as long as he's a good character. Sure, he's dumb and naive and clueless, but he never actively makes a situation worse. He's always trying his best to help even if he fails. And he wants Knuckles' respect so badly, yet is so consistently shit on throughout the series that I can't help but find him endearing. They make a joke about him jerking off. Also, there is a scene in this movie where Knuckles watches a clip of a movie where Julia Roberts talks about a guy having a massive dick. Just wanted to point that out. The first signs of disappointment from fans came when IGN or Kotaku or some website made an article about Knuckles barely being in the series, claiming something like, oh, why do the 170-something minutes, Knuckles is only in 70-something? And I think that almost made people go in looking for the times in which Knuckles is put on the back burner. When honestly, I think this statement is pretty disingenuous. Like, I think there were literally counting times in which Knuckles was in a scene physically, just not on screen, like when it cuts to someone else. Whenever Knuckles is not on screen, all the other characters should be asking, where's Knuckles? From the way folks talked about it, I was expecting episode 1 to end with Knuckles getting kidnapped and Weird spending the next hour trying to rescue him while he's taken somewhere else. But no, he's in the show fairly consistently. I don't know what people are talking about. The only times where I'd argue Knuckles' lack of presence is noticeable would have to be in the second half of episode 5 and the middle of episode 6, which is an issue, and I will discuss that in a bit. I often see people saying that episode 4 is the worst episode in the entire show, because it is by far the one that features Knuckles the least, with just a brief moment at the very start and at the very end. But I couldn't disagree more. Ironically, it ended up being my favorite for being able to have an actual start, middle, and end. It told its own story. For Weird, admittedly, but I don't know, I don't judge whether or not an episode is good depending on how much screen time Knuckles gets. I think it's the wrong mindset to go into this series just fucking dragging your feet anytime they show a human on screen when Knuckles is not the focus, because, again, this is the Sonic movie universe, what are you expecting? I didn't even like the fucking second Sonic movie, and I can acknowledge that. I think what most fans might hate about this is that we're hearing what's essentially Knuckles' backstory. We learn about his father's death, how he was the last of his tribe and had to unlock the power from within him during a battle against what's basically Iblis from Sonic 06. This is what I think most would have rather the show been about, and honestly, I agree, that sounds great. But instead, here it is being told through a low-budget rock opera. But I kinda don't care, because it's fun. I think what I enjoyed most about the Knuckles show would have to be its creativity when it comes to the direction and editing. It's written like a cartoon. In this world, business cards can talk, bounty hunters drive around in Hummers with cages attached, and the rock opera is by far when the show leans most into the wackiness. It's just so neat. The low-quality sets are fun, that little moment where Weed glides as Knuckles is great, and I absolutely love this dumbass puppet they used to show his dad's literal death. I see folks say kids wouldn't like this show because of how much it focuses on the humans, but I couldn't disagree more. I think this show is so silly and so dumb that kids would end up loving it. Knuckles is just the bonus. Which again, is an issue, but it doesn't make the rest of it bad. I think Knuckles is great here. Idris Elba's performance is just as confusing as ever, but for a character like this, a fish out of water not used to Earth's customs, it's just charming. I like seeing Knuckles chat and watch movies with Weird's mom. I laughed at the absurdity of him sitting down for a traditional Jewish dinner. I'm of the belief that a good character can be put in any situation and still be entertaining if that character is good. And I think the fact that I liked this show as much as I did despite the lack of action or Sonic lore is a testament to how much I do like this movie universe and its own characters. It isn't perfect, I'm not going to defend everything it does. Again, Weird's sister is insufferable, and I really wish he didn't infiltrate her way into the last 3 episodes. 1 was more than enough. But I think what they really failed to do here was balance the amount of Weird versus Knuckles we see. Again, I like Weird. There were times where I just forgot Knuckles was a character, and honestly I didn't even care because I was genuinely interested in seeing where Weird's stuff was going. But as a result, it leaves Knuckles' arc feeling empty. They set up this idea that Knuckles is kinda aimless. He needs something to fight for now that the Master Emerald was found, and his way of finding this purpose is through just teaching Weird. Yet by the end, they make a big deal to establish that Knuckles now sees Earth as his home and that he likes it here now. But no effort was actually made to show us that, other than through his growing relationship with Weird. It was missing that bar scene from the first Sonic movie. It was missing a moment of Knuckles doing his own thing at the casino where he has fun and realizes there's a lot to like about Earth. I really think if we just got a little bit more Knuckles in those final 2 episodes, we would have been golden. Other than that, I don't like how little presence the villains have, basically getting defeated at the end of episode 2 and not coming back in any meaningful way until episode 5, just to then die at the start of the finale. They have this guy, the Buyer, who used to work for Robotnik before he went crazy and wants Knuckles' power for his machines. And he's in the show for such a short amount of time that I only knew his name was the Buyer because of a poster that said it was. His name is otherwise never stated in the show at all, and I think that's a massive oversight. But despite all of that, the last 2 episodes having bad pacing, Knuckles' arc not really feeling fully developed, and the villain having little to no presence until the end, I still find myself having a ton of fun with Knuckles. I wouldn't recommend it if you're looking for a good Sonic series. If that's the case, I would just say go and watch... Oh, there isn't one. But if you can accept it for what it is, a goofy buddy comedy about an alien trying to help this big but ultimately charming man-child into proving himself, then I think you're in for a good time. Again, don't like it if you want, that's fine, but I do think the feedback has been a tad overblown. Again, Knuckles is in this show way more than I would have expected from how people were talking about it. I don't really think it's a disgrace to have enjoyed this show. I don't agree with this idea that it shows Paramount that we accept mediocrity, because the only metric in which that seems to be judged on here is by how much Knuckles is in it, when I personally believe there's a lot more to a show than just that. The CGI also looks fucking incredible. I can only imagine the budget this had. If the choice was either less screen time but a great-looking Knuckles, or a bad-looking Knuckles who's the focus of the whole show, well, okay, I would take a bad-looking Knuckles. But that doesn't mean what's here isn't good. It's just different. Like a Knuckles version of the first Sonic movie, which again, I think is better than the second one, so maybe that explains why I like the Knuckles show so much. I have never been put in this position before on this scale, to have enjoyed a series so universally loathed by fans, so tell me in the comments why I'm too positive, I guess? Whatever.
A little snack, what do you say, bud?
I only eat grapes. And Cool Ranch Doritos.
No one. I'm